In this edition of the program, we're going to take a look at President Paul Biya's 37 years of reign in the Republic of Cameroon from the 6th of November 1982 to the 6th of November 2019. Successes, achievements, challenges, and failures of the New Deal regime. We're going to take a look at all that in this edition of the program. We'll also talk about the expected implementation of recommendations of the major national dialogue which took place in Cameroon's political capital, Yaoundé, with the aim of finding a way out of the Anglophone crisis, finding a way towards a restoration of peace and normalcy in the crisis-hit northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon. We'll also talk about the northwest-southwest peace movement initiated by some Anglophone Cameroonians in view of contributing to the return of normalcy and peace in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. Meet our guest in some few seconds. Our guest in this edition of the program is His Royal Highness Honorable Chief Hon N, former member of Cameroon's lower house of parliament, member of the ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement (CPDM) political party, son of one of the prominent political figures in the former British Southern Cameroon, Nerus Namaso Mbile, one of the 13 Cameroon or Southern Cameroon's representatives who sat in the Nigerian Eastern House of Assembly in Enugu in 1952. As an accomplished journalist, trade unionist, and politician, Mbile is widely recognized as one of the rare breed of founding fathers of the Cameroon nation, west of the Mungo, author of the book Cameroon, a Political Story, in which he gave an account of an eyewitness account of what happened in the former Southern Cameroons during his political life. We'll be taking a look at all these in this edition of The Inside. Honorable Hon N, you're welcome.
Thank you for inviting me.
You are the son of one of the prominent political figures in the former British Southern Cameroons. What do you remember of your father?
In fact, I can tell you that I had a very interesting childhood because I grew up in a flurry of political activities with people coming and going, my father coming and going, and the comments from the community accompanying him, good ones, bad ones. Sometimes our mother, whom we generally accompany to market, will be booed by people we go by. Sometimes she'll be hailed. So I can tell you I was part of the political life of my father, especially that from very early, I don't know, I caught interest in the affairs of the community, how people react, why people say this or that, what mission my father thought he had in life, and how he expected to achieve those missions.
Now, your father, Nerus Namaso Mbile, is widely recognized as one of the rare breeds of founding fathers of the Cameroon nation, west of the Mungo. What were some of the remarkable contributions of your father in the political life of the former British Southern Cameroon?
My father was founder of a political party, the KPP, with Honorable Motombi Wellet of Victoria. He very early in his life realized that he had to be a politician. And I don't know, maybe politics and journalism go together. At that time, the action newspaper owned by Nyamdi Azikiwe. He was the representative and the correspondent of Southern Cameroon based in Kumba. And that's how he eventually got into politics. As a leader of KPP, to cut it short, he eventually aligned with KNC of Dr. E.M. Melendeli, and they formed the CPNC. And the CPNC was one party side by side with the KNDP of Dr. J.N. Foncha. And this is how the political life was. The very critical period of the plebiscite in 1961. The CPNC stood for attaining independence by joining the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And it was a very, very trying period for us, because that was the minority view of the people. The large majority of people in Kumba, for example, under the KNDP and under the wake of the dominance of the Igbos, who were generally the traders and the administrators, felt that they needed something else. They could not continue to be dominated by the Igbos, who were not very equitable as they thought. And my father, very courageously, because it wasn't easy in Kumba to defend
the position of gaining independence by joining the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Yes. You know, there is a famous song, Mr. Foncha telling Biya, say, Cameroon, we are country. That was a song coined, a political song coined to orient the people that Cameroon was the choice and that Nigeria was never the choice. It was done within the background of acrimony against the Igbo domination and the Igbo elite attitude and the commercial dominance of that group from Nigeria. In fact,
we read in books, we hear from oral history that at the time, with regard to the dominant trade strength of the Igbos, when Cameroonians came to the market, or Southern Cameroonians, for example, and just touched an article, an act for the price, a piece of cloth,
the Igbo man tore it. That was the legend. That was the key thing. And even those who had not experienced it will still tell. I'm very happy that you, as young as you are, it remains in your mind that is what the KNDP used to get people across. Mr. Foncha telling me, they say, small no be sick, Cameroon now we are country. You can imagine. They said no matter how small Cameroon was, it's Cameroon. And West Cameroon were going to be one, and that was our country. So the sweep was total. Of course, you know the figures of the plebiscite. 232,000 as against 97. It was a real beating. But then, courageously, Ndeli and Biya and Motombi and the rest who supported joining Nigeria went on. After the plebiscite, they even went to London to interpret the results and said that they should carve out the people who wanted to join Nigeria to join, and those who wanted to join Cameroon to join, but they were told no, they had to go. I think they went to Washington. They had to go and make it a success. So when they came back at Tico Airport, and that is the front page of my father's book, you find all of them in the picture, holding hands, dancing, and saying, let us make the the Cameroon experienced a success. In the northern part, the vote was in favor of
joining
independence by joining Nigeria, while the southern territory, we joined the Republic of Cameroon.
And your father recounted all of these things and many other happenings of that time in his book, The Cameroon Political Story. The Cameroon Political Story.
Yes, right. A very interesting book that many people want to get. I promise that we are going to organize a re-edition of that book. It's very interesting.
All right, and now let's talk about President Paul Biya. On the 4th of November 1982, the first president of the Republic of Cameroon, Amadou Ahidjo, announced his resignation, and of course his constitutional successor at the time was Paul Biya, who was prime minister. Where were you when this announcement was read on, was passed on radio? How did you get the news? How did you receive it?
We were in school. I was 16 and able to of course, having grown up from in a political home like mine, I was conscious of it, but sincerely, it took all of us by surprise. If you knew the grip with which the former president of Cameroon, Amadou Ahidjo, held his people and his country, and how jealously he looked at his power and his prerogatives, it was completely unimaginable, unexpected that he could just one day get up and say,
I'm stepping down.
Yes, he doesn't want to be president anymore. So people were afraid. They said, well, what's happening? Was he sick? Was it this? Has he been threatened by the French? What all sorts of interpretations were given. And the most ill-prepared for it was President Paul Biya, because it took him by shock. He was prime minister, yes. Yes, constitutionally, President Ahidjo had arranged for parliament to say that prime minister was next in if in case of
his constitutional successor.
Yes, but there was no question. You know, in Africa, with the tradition of heads of states staying for very long periods, 23 years, I guess, was nothing. Nobody was expecting President Ahidjo to give up power, but it happened. And first there was fear, generalized fear.
Why were people afraid?
Fear that there was a calamity. How could the president, so powerful president, such a leader, having full grip and full control of everything, every aspect, no press liberty, no free press, no free expression. People could not even say certain things in whispers because you didn't know who will go and report on you. And in that atmosphere,
and what will happen to you?
What will happen to you? We used to hear that people were just whisked off to Cholire, Cholire in the north. There was a famous prison where they say political prisoners were kept.
You said there was fear. There was fear on the 4th of November 1982 when President Amadou Ahidjo announced his resignation. Other persons who witnessed that era also indicate that there was a kind of celebration. They would say widespread celebration. Was there a sense of liberation?
When you say celebration, it came afterwards. You know, the atmosphere of doubt and
uncertainty
prevailed more than that of celebration, because as I told you, President Biya was not very well known. What was preponderant more at the time was the fact that Ahidjo had left power, and we're still doubting why. Was it a trick? Was it a trap? Was he wanted to see if people will jubilate? Who will jubilate? From which area? So when he comes back, he's going to show them, make them have a feel of his power, the wrath of his power. So there couldn't be celebration immediately. But of course, when Biya took power and he started touring the regions, the provinces at the time, oh, you know, even members of the opposition will say this, Biya has a likable gait. And when he was younger, oh, he was a lovable person. So when he moved, people discovered, say, oh, this is the new Ahijo. And it was wonderful. He's a new person, even in color, he was not dark, he was lighter, he was smiling, he was affable, he was easygoing. So he quickly caught the eye of Cameroon, and he was an extremely popular person. That's why between the 2 years, 84, 86, when the tussle came about,
the power tussle,
tussle came about, the whole country threw their weight behind the new president. Said, oh, you leave this young man to also do something. You have done your own.
What provoked that power tussle between Ahijo and President Biya?
As I said, first in the north, there was this rejection of Ahijo's resignation. I remember Musa Yaya was sacked by Ahijo from the party because openly he expressed his disapproval of Ahijo's decision to leave power, and Ahijo to reaffirm that decision and to show that he was still in control, because he retained the chairmanship of the CNU while giving the executive position to President Biya. And as the chairman of the CNU, politically he was still extremely powerful, if not more powerful than the executive president. So he continued within those 2 years to run, to lead or to orient matters of state from the party. And there was now this dualism between the president of the republic and the president of the CNU party. And this was, it was difficult 2 years, until, you remember, you know very well, when the 6th April coup finally came on, and he was somewhere, and they questioned him that, what's happening in your country? Yeah. And he made a statement which is very popular, that if they asked him, are those your boys doing that? He said, if they are my boys, they will succeed. And it's that statement that many people used to indict him, that he was part of the coup.
When President Paul Biya came to power on the 6th of November 1982, what did you see in President Paul Biya as a leader?
I may not remember specifically that date, but as soon as he took power, we started hearing words like rigor and moralization. That was the leitmotif, rigor and moralization. He was going to clean up the state. There was not much corruption as it is today, I can tell you, but there was still the laissez-aller of the civil service. You know that even today, much of economic activities or whatever you want to say depend on the state budget. Many people, much revolves around the state budget and the state institutions. So he came with rigor and moralization, and we were all very optimistic and happy that a new orientation, a new wave, and of course, he liberalized a lot of things. The press.
The 1990s?
Yes. Even before he was leaving, until I remember in 1986, when after the Congress of the CNU in Bamenda, that became the birth of the CPDM. When we had elections, the first elections in the party CPDM, There were primaries. It had never been the case. There were primaries. And of course in 1990, you remember the famous statement, he said, prepare, we should be prepared for competition. So we cannot gainsay it. Biya has brought in an era of liberalization. People speak freely. It is true. In some areas, they still complain that demonstrations cannot hold freely, that people must get used to the culture of allowing the masses to express themselves. But if you see from which background we come, you would accept that we've come a long way. There is a lot of liberalism. People talk freely. Number of newspapers, number of TV stations. Everybody says what he wants to say. Even the National Communication Council, whatever you say, how repressive it could be, but sometimes it even comes up with a sanction and it's not implemented, and the government sits quiet. You could not imagine that in the past. So I think Cameroon has gone a long way. It's true that we need to keep going. We need to keep going.
But looking at that particular aspect, there are lots of complaints coming from the civil society, opposition political leaders, talking about public liberties, talking about freedom of expression. Yes, there are quite a good number of newspapers, radio stations, TV stations, online media organs in Cameroon today, but there are complaints of the press being muzzled. There are complaints of opposition political leaders not allowed to express themselves, not allowed to hold public demonstrations. There are lots of complaints of violation of the right of expression in Cameroon today. Talking about journalists, for example, we have so many journalists who are in detention today. We have one who is Samuel Wazizi in the southwest region, who is in detention today for several weeks, incommunicado. Nobody knows where he is. The Fako High Court rejects habeas corpus requests from his lawyers, and lots of things like this. So when you look at all of this, and you talk about liberation, you talk about liberalism, talk about freedom of expression, there's some sort of contradiction with the reality.
Yes, I understand if you have this view, but if you compare to the Ahijo days, oh, it's night and day. And let me tell you that, in my opinion, I think that what is still a problem is the colonial administration which we carried out. That is how people, you know, administrators, I don't think much has changed in their manner of approach. The police, the gendarmerie and all that, they still have an approach that they had in the days of Ahijo, in the days of before even independence, when the French inculcated all this, that they are worried when there is a public manifestation, political manifestation. They are not sure whether it will end safely. And I have to tell you that generally the demonstrators, the manifestators themselves, the manifestors themselves are part of the problem. We have not, on both sides, we have not yet imbibed the true democratic expression, whether on the part of the administration or the part of the demonstrators. It is very easy for a demonstration to turn violent. People don't know what to say, where to stop, and people, those who are reacting, don't know what to say and where to stop. So I think that this also, in spite of what you think may be black spots in the liberalization process, I am very optimistic that we have gone very far, and the little things which are remaining will be cleaned up when the lessons will be learned both ways. I think at my age, I can tell you that I like the way the two parties are tussling, and we're forging ahead. And you see, in spite of all what you can say, those people end up being freed. They end up being left alone. So it's like they want to say, please do it, but even you must have limits. You agree with me that some of your colleagues exaggerate? They say things that, you see, the professionalism is on both sides. In as much as there is repression on the, quite some repression on the part of the administration, on the part of the public society and journalists and all that, people hate people they intend to. In fact, you know it very well. Some people believe that the Burkina Faso experience can happen to Cameroon.
Even the Rwandan genocide with the Rajon Mirkolin
and all that, and all those things. So I think we who have the ability to impact either government or the civil society or the general society, we should continue to preach the lessons of ponderance, of care, of tolerance, and we must be careful, we must be professional. We must be professional. There are many ways, as a literary student that I am, I can tell you that the way you say something is more important than the thing you say. If you say something with all the violent inflections, threats, it will lose its value. Somebody will not even listen to what you are saying. He will say, man, he was so angry, he was shouting, he was threatening, his gestures were threatening. But you can say, you can talk against Biya as you want, but if you put it nicely and constructively, people will listen and say, that is a good suggestion. Even the government will listen and will say, look, the people say this. You know that Biya is known to be one of the leaders who has always listened to people. They say he reacts when people do so, when people get up in the streets and say, oh, this, that, we don't like this. The next day, you see him take an action to correct it. But it's when people go violent or they have bad intentions, I think the middle ground should be that Cameroonians should be careful. We should behave like the boy in the village whose father is the head of the family and who wants something from the father, and he knows that his father will not give it if he puts it badly, and he takes all the care to make sure that he puts everything on his side, but eventually has it.
But the problem is that some are complaining and talking about issues like discrimination in the application of the law by public authorities, by forces of law and other and so on, with regards to who is who. Is it the CPDM? Is it the CRM? Is it the STF? Political parties of the opposition saying our manifestations are never authorized, are banned at every given time, but the CPDM is free to celebrate its the 6th or the 7th anniversary of the accession to power of President Paul Biya everywhere on the streets, everywhere and so on, to carry on its manifestations, and they are never banned.
Yes, I really have to agree that still the mentality of those in power remain that they have the yam and the knife. I agree. It's also an African attitude. It's also an African attitude. And that those who don't hold the knife will have the smaller part of the yam. I agree. But that notwithstanding, there is still an approach that can be taken. And we will move faster than revendications. Oh, this, that. We are not white men. The problem with us is that we are always thinking that the democracy in America, in France, in England should be the same in Africa. When you look at the span of time, we have been running so fast. Only 1960, to 2020. 60 years, and we are trying to catch up with people who have had 800 years of experience and all that. So we must be patient. I still come back to the imagery of a village child who wants the father who is all powerful. He has 5 wives and 26 children, and that child wants the father to send him to school. He wants it badly. If he uses it, if he comes and say, Papa, I think say you have to send me to school, the father will say, go to the farm. You small brat, how dare you talk to me? Or he will say, call your mother. He will say, are you the one who sent your mother, your son to insult me? But he should be able to know. He wants the father to give him capital to go to town and start a business. The father has the money. It may not go all around. He will know what to do. Maybe for the 2 months preceding the request, he will be so serviceable to the father. He will make sure he's the first to clean his shoes, to take his bag when he comes home, to make sure he has food, to make sure he cleans the table, to make sure he's always there when the father starts calling only him. Babila, Babila, where are you? Come and do this. Babila, where? So when he finally puts, say, no, Babila is even trying. Even if I have little money, let me try. There must be a way, but we think that is our right. When we start on the basis of it is our right.
But what will happen if that method is not working?
The method will always work. Maybe slow.
If the father is not probably
responding the way the child wants. Okay, I'll tell you something. You have had a father. You asked him something. He first said no, or I don't have money. But later on, he himself calls you and gives you the money. You remember your father, everybody has had that with his father. So, the fact that a father says no does not mean that the child should start insulting people in the house, cutting down plantain stems that are not yet mature, and showing his anger, or taking a knife and coming to the house and say, if you don't give me money now, nobody will eat in this house. Violence
is not the right way, that's what you're saying.
Not the right way.
Okay, President Paul Biya, when he came to power, he promised that he was going to maintain Cameroon on the path of prosperity, that he was going to maintain Cameroon on the path of prosperity. But from 1982 to 2019, what has he done in this light? What has he done to maintain Cameroon on the path on which Ahijo put it before leaving?
Are you inferring that Ahijo left Cameroon on the path of prosperity?
According to what President Paul Biya told Cameroonians after he took over power in his inaugural speech.
He said what?
That he is taking over a country which is upright, which is on the path of prosperity, and he promised to maintain Cameroon on that path.
I'm sure when he said that, it's not that I don't know. I just wanted us to have the same references. When he said that, it surely meant that the economy was doing well, meaning that we had a positive balance sheet, balance of payment in our favor. There was money kept. Much of the oil money, the little that had been gotten, was kept. Ahijo did not want to touch that money. He said, we shall continue to be an agrarian-based economy. And he did that. So when Paul Biya came, it's true. He made money and he embarked on some projects. Ahijo, even the Unity Palace, which is so resplendent, wasn't built by Ahijo, it was built by Biya. Ahijo started it, but didn't enter. Biya finished it, although Ahijo started it. What I am saying is that Biya came with a new drive of achievements. And the achievements, you could sit on your table and say, okay, John, my son John, take this 50,000, go to the market, buy this, buy that, pay transport, go to the village, hand this to your grandmother and come back. you will go and expect that it will happen. By the time he comes back, he says, Papa, I've done it. Then you start having echoes. This is what he did. He did not bring enough. He gave this, instead of 5 bunches of plantains, he brought 2. He brought this. He said they had an accident on the way. The thieves met him and took the 20,000 he had to come and give me cash. He only gave me 3,000, so on. That means, what I'm saying is, the implementation of a program does not depend only on the person deciding. To cut it short, you can see from the moment he said, yes, he has made a prosperous country, to the moment where people were saying, there is corruption, Mr. President. And he said, where are the proofs? I'm taking you even up to that, or through that. To today, where do we find ourselves today? He has the proof. And where are those people in prison? You cannot, seeing the itinerary of this leader, you cannot completely condemn him. If he did not put anybody in prison or he did not punish anybody for crimes committed, who would say? When he was saying, where are the proofs? People were saying, oh, Biya is the problem. Because he refused to see the proofs. But sincerely, he did not know that his ministers, his general managers, all those he put in positions of trust, were doing what they were doing. And when he had proof that they were doing what they were doing, people are now blaming him that he is putting too many people in prison.
Now, from rigor and moralization,
yes,
through greater ambitions,
yes,
through greater achievements,
yes,
and then now greater opportunities,
yes,
what are some of the remarkable things that can be recorded as successes or achievements of the New Deal government for the past 37 years?
You have to agree with me, even as many of them are still ongoing, that the past 15 years of his reign, there are more and more infrastructural realizations, more roads have been built, more bridges, more energy sources, dams have been built all over Cameroon. Cameroon is on the path of infrastructural and developmental restructuring. It is true that the results are still to be enjoyed fully, but when you look around, and one thing I want people to understand, when the economic trend of the international world is bad, one country cannot be an exception. As soon as he took power in 1986, let me use 86 because that's when he really was the president. 84 to 86, there was this duality, this tussle. 86, as I told you, he started wanting to implement the crisis of 1990 came. And I'm sure, I don't know how old you were, I'm sure you didn't even feel it because you were too young. But that was so central to the entire world. Most countries fell under, went under, but Cameroon has been, in fact, let me borrow the word from the president, very resilient. Has been very resilient. Look round. They glorified Gabon that had money and paid civil servants so much today. And all that. You look around. It's true. Some of us still think it could have done better. It could have done better. But, you know, when a first English language speaker, Cameroonian, says something alluding to more attachment to our neighbor from the west, on the west side. Francophones used to think, French speakers used to think that, oh, it's because we have this nostalgia of wanting to go back to Nigeria. But we think that the existence of a giant community like the Nigerian people, close to to us, is a wonderful economic opportunity. That instead of going to struggling all these years to attach ourselves to very, very reluctant, reticent Equatorians, Gabonese, to form a union that will never be, we would have gone very far if we
in economic cooperation with neighboring Nigeria, which is a very booming economy.
And booming and big. You see, but it is like they too said, this is our family. We cannot leave our family and go, even if the man outside is offering more. But we, Nigeria was our family. You see, those are a few of the differences we have with our brothers who speak, who come from the former East Cameroon, to say that enough of the opportunities that are offered to our country are not being exploited. It would have been better if, but then we think that this is a little bit changing. For some years now, maybe 3, 4, 5 years, we are seeing a new wave of cooperation with Nigeria. Even the road, finally, the Bamenda road has finally been done. And but for this insecurity problem, I think that road alone would have changed so many lives in that part of Cameroon.
When you look at Cameroon today, with many Cameroonians, a good chunk of the population living below the poverty line, from the big cities to the hinterlands, there are bad roads everywhere, in Yaoundé, in Douala. Recently, a good portion of the nation's political capital was in darkness, no electricity for quite a number of days.
That was an accident.
And they look at the rate of corruption in Cameroon today. You listen to some of your comrades, elite of the CPDM in the far north region, complaining, qualifying their region as a region of Boko Haram, a region of insecurity, a region of cholera, a region of all sorts of things, all sorts of unpleasant things.
Natural catastrophe, floods,
and all of that. And the promise that President Paul Biya made when he took over power. What has happened over the years?
You cannot impute all of this on the president. As I said, there are economic trends. Then there are habits, like it is almost cultural. You cannot stop somebody who has been appointed. You cannot stop his people from jubilating. Why do they jubilate? Why do they jubilate? Because there is a culture in Cameroon that when your brother is up the plum tree, you think that by right you should enjoy the blackest plums. People are not orienting themselves to the right approach of fighting this problem. We think that it is by a magic wand that the president of the republic can just use the wand and things change overnight. Look, I tell you, if you want to know who the Cameroonian is, go drive in the streets of Douala and Yaoundé. You will know. The Cameroonian is an extremely stubborn, intractable, disagreeable, and never surrender person. Even when the lights, the traffic lights are in your favor, you know, you drive. You have to look left and right. Because people don't respect anything. When you come to a school where a principal says that I have already had 60 students in this class, I don't want any more, please don't come to me again with requests of admission. You see somebody comes with an envelope. If the envelope is 10,000 or 20, he's chased away. The next day he comes back 30,000. The next day he comes back with 50,000. Until he weakens the resolve of that individual. You know, look, when you find the director of a professional school taking bribe sometimes you blame him, and you know, we should blame him. But of course, you know, in corruption, it takes two. And the background that all of us come from, we are all children of farmers, of villagers. When we say farmers, you may think that it's a serious farm. It's just a little subsistence unit. If you find a child coming from that background, and then somebody brings in 2 million francs, 5 million francs, 10 million francs to take a child in a professional school, even if you are strong as what, sometimes you are wicked. So it is true, we condemn all that, and we continue to plead that those in power should be strong. They should resist corruption. But still, when the entire community, you come home, you, that very person who...
So who is to be blamed?
The society.
Cameroonians,
the society.
Collaborators of the head of state?
The society. The society. The society. And in fact, if we really want to change this country, we must start there. We must go down and change our mentality. And initially the Anglophones went along, hopefully thinking that it was the price they had to pay to better their own living. So when finally they saw that they were not getting what they expected, that's when they just said, oh, we made a mistake. Then they started picking on the process. This wasn't done, that wasn't done, and then by the time it was 2016, the cup was overflowing, and in so many other things. Why were lawyers who are educated people marching on the streets? Why were they beaten? Why were this? So you see, look, this thing that has happened, I think.
What do you think about the management of this crisis from 2016 to now?
Managed badly on both sides. Both sides. On the side of government, could have been done. It could have been averted. It could have been averted. There was a time we just needed a statement from the Ministry of Justice to appease the lawyers. And they will leave it. It is the lawyers.
But the response was military. The response was
repressive.
Force, repressive.
Was repressive. There again, it was unnecessary. Then, when the lawyers saw that they were going to be ridiculed, you know, a lawyer is a very smart person. He looked in the society and said that if education does not enter this thing, it will die. They got the teachers' union, and they were speaking.
And later on, it turned into an armed conflict.
Yes. On the part also of the separatists, mistakes have been made. They underestimated the impact of this crisis on their own people, on their own area. When it started, we thought that it would be something that will be either in the newspapers or in the media or in the air. Those who are suffering today never knew that it is in their villages, that it will be their farms.
Hundreds of villages burnt down today,
so on.
Several persons killed, several persons handicapped, hundreds of thousands displaced internally and externally, and the last UNICEF report indicated that there are 855,000 children who remain out of school in those two regions today as a result of the crisis.
And many more things that you have not even mentioned. And also, let me also mention hundreds of soldiers, family heads, killed by separatists. We should never, when we are recounting all the ills of this system, let us not fail to point out that even though policemen, gendarme officers, military, they are people who carry the gun, the normal Cameroonians saw those positions as an opportunity to feed their families. People enter the police not knowing that one day they will have to face another gun. So today when they are being killed, it is a tragedy. And it shouldn't be glossed over. Most especially English speaking Cameroonians, when they want to talk about the ills of this problem, they gloss over the part that the government has suffered. People have suffered. I don't even want to go further, because if I go further, it becomes even very delicate to say certain things. The kind of hatred that was preached against the Francophones when this thing started. And you go to certain parts of West Cameroon, former West Cameroon, Northwest and Southwest regions, you find some people who still think that the Francophone per se is an enemy, whereas it is they who salvage us. When we ran, I'm also an IDP. My parents was burnt on the 23rd of February 2018, as far back as that. I escaped. I saw them coming. I could no longer stay in Kumba because, you know, I am very expressive. I'm vocal. I think that I can contribute in my society. But apparently, those who wanted to take power in Southwest and Northwest regions don't want people who express their minds.
If I understand you clearly, the point you're driving through is that it's not a problem between Francophones and Anglophones.
Far from that.
It's a problem that concerns the English-speaking community of Cameroon,
yes.
And the government on the other side.
Yes, who think that, and the ruling mass on the other side, they call it oligarchy on the other side, who think that, the Anglophones think that they have not had their fair share of this coming to join their brothers.
We're going to take the press review. We'll take a look at what the newspapers reported this week, and we'll be right back.
The Horizon began the week announcing the reaction of the government of Cameroon after being blacklisted by the US from the African Growth and Opportunity Act (AGOA). The Garden Post said US diplomat hints more sanctions will follow after US suspension of trade deals with Cameroon. On same issue, the Sun said government hit back after removal from AGOA list. The Post, US unleashes another devastation, referring to President Paul Biya. And on November C, the Garden Post questioned if President Paul Biya could have gone as far as 37 years in power without Anglophones. In a related story, Newswatch said Atanganji and Galat Gerard rally Mezaman Kambe behind Paul Biya at 37th anniversary in power. The Post Weekender said Paul Biya's 37 years in power, stewardship of pain, tears, anguish, joy and laughter.
Honorable, what do you think about the expected implementation of the recommendations of the major national dialogue, especially the major one, which is the special status for the Northwest and the Southwest regions of the country?
Let me be very clear, and this is another danger we run. Many Anglophones think that since special status have been announced, that is their package. That is their cake. They are going to be different citizens in Cameroon. And it's going to be automatic, and no other person will share in it, and no other person should come and bask in that glory except those who are from the Northwest or the Southwest. I want to beg, as we are today, that appellation special status is still in a bag. Let me tell you what has just happened in the extreme north, where a member of parliament stood up and said what he said, is in reaction to the award of special status to the Northwest and the Southwest. Just as the inhabitants and the people of the East region, who have always felt that they have been marginalized, are asking themselves, but why is it that if it's something good, why could they not be part of it? So I want to beg.
That is why Kawala Edit, national president of the CPP, said the special status was a problem. Is it actually a problem or a solution to the crisis?
No. I don't see it as a problem. I see it as something on which we must tread carefully. I wouldn't use any word. It is something on which we must handle with care.
Can it solve the Anglophone crisis?
Yes, if it special status is what it could start from autonomous everything. It could go to federation. It could go to autonomy. It could be anything. It could be special dispositions by Yaoundé for Bamenda and Biya. It could mean anything. But the trap there is what? Are we going to think or continue to think that we are no longer normal Cameroonians like those in Maroa, Gaoundere and Betwa? Are we going to think that Yaoundé will hold the rest of Cameroon in one unit while partying with the Northwest and Southwest, and others will be looking? So we must be ready to say that if the status given to Northwest and Southwest, if it's good, if it is not attached to the English culture or the historical background of the Anglophones, why should other regions not share in it? For example, I take the one of reducing the supervisory powers of the administrative authorities on councils. If it is one of the aspects of special status that will allow our councils to run, we eliminate government delegates and so on, it should be a nationwide it should enjoy a nationwide implementation. In the Makiza days of Nobe and NS1G, it was the West and Bassal land that suffered, but the rest of Cameroon enjoyed whatever came out of it. Today is Northwest and Southwest. If because we have sacrificed, the rest of Cameroon enjoys, it shouldn't be a problem.
All right, Honorable, let's take some interviews and we'll be right back in some few minutes.
I pray that they should realize themselves and come back home. But the worst thing I want to see is when my brother and sister are being killed because they're in the bushes. I want them to stay home with us peacefully. Let's look how to develop Cameroon. Cameroon is still a young country that we can develop. So we're praying that they should come back home. Let's put our heads together and develop the country. Because I don't want to see bloodshed. I want my brothers to be home. Cameroonians will be calling on the president to implement the recommendations that we forwarded to him from the major national dialogue as soon as possible, so that peace will return to the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon.
The application was in essence dismissed on two grounds. First, the court argued that the first applicant, Barrister Ewule, ought not to have been an applicant because he was never arrested. And secondly, that the Procureur General was a wrong party to have been listed in the process. But we hold a different view. And we found the court's ruling a little bit awkward, you know, in the sense that when you have time to look at the ruling, you appreciate that yourself. All the arguments and the case law that we had submitted to court were never taken into consideration in the court's ruling. Rather, the court focused more on what the legal department raised, without making reference to any argument that we raised or any authority, legal authority that we cited. Some of those authorities were authorities of cases that were decided by the same judge. The matters of this nature gives us an opportunity to assess the independence of the judiciary and to see whether or not the judiciary is a power. And we believe that this decision has demonstrated that the judiciary is not. But also, these are means that are meant to stifle or discourage the process of seeking accountability. But we will pursue the matter further. We're advising ourselves. We'll do a repeat application and see what the court will say.
in the Anglophone section, we don't have the